What is the most intoxicated you have ever been? Story number 1. I know I have been to Las Vegas. I do not remember ever being in Las Vegas. I was 21 and with a couple guys from my unit in the Marines. I remember drinking Friday night and waking up in the barracks Monday, and I've been shown pictures of being in Vegas in between. But there's no memory of the 50 or so hours in between. Story number 2. I woke up on the floor with one leg on the couch in a stranger's living room and only tidy whities that were not mine, and my penis and balls were stuck out through the little hole flap in the front. A guy around my age came out of a hallway and said, "Oh good, you're finally awake, can you please leave?" I was so embarrassed and freaked out. I just got up and walked out the door, got to the road and realized I was only a few minutes walk from my friend's house where we had started drinking the night before. So I instinctively started walking that way, but I was in such a daze trying to remember what had happened that I didn't realize my penis was hanging out till a car drove by. Then it hit me that I was basically naked, and I started walking as fast as I could to my friend's house. No shoes plus back roads made it, so I couldn't run. Luckily, when I got there, his mother and sisters were all gone, and he and another friend from a few miles down the road were sitting playing video games. I immediately asked them what happened and why the fuck they left me with a stranger, and they just laughed. To this day, I have yet to get a straight answer from the one of them. Still talk to us to what happened that day. Never got my clothes back either. I forgot to mention my friends and I were around 16 to 17. I'm 32 now when this happened, and the whole event took place on a hillbilly mountain in nowhere, Alabama. Story number 3. Recovering alcoholic here. When I got sober, I had to go to the hospital to be medically detoxed. I felt 100% sober, and I tested at a 30 for back, which is enough to kill most people. It was around this time that I promptly had a seizure, fell into a coma for 3 days, then never touched alcohol again. At this time in my life, I was drinking 40 shooters of Fireball a day, which was around 1/2 gallon of whiskey. I had my parents take me to the hospital. Because I couldn't eat, ulcers in my esophagus, I could still drink. I was losing my eyesight, and I was trying to dry out on my own. I was experiencing delirium tremens as well. I have been sober for 2 years, and I have end-stage cirrhosis at 35. Story number 4. I woke up in the dark and started screaming because I thought I was in the trunk of a car until my friend opened the bathroom door and flicked the lights on. They coaxed me into the bathtub to contain my alcohol-induced vomiting to the space I was least likely to destroy. I wasn't wearing any pants, and I never did find them again. I had blue stains on my light gray shirt, and I was covered in Cheeto dust. I don't remember leaving the bar we had gone to or getting back to my friend's place at all. I had red ink all over my butt and my light blue thong, which completely mystified me until I went through my camera roll. Someone had taken a video on my phone of me bent over the shooter bar and having a stripper sign my butt with a red marker. I had 2 broken toes, a chipped front tooth, and a really deep bite mark on my right nipple that had drawn blood. Still don't know who or what was involved in any of those things happening. Story number 5. In college, I spent a year in China, and there was a weird social culture where our Chinese friends were always trying to get us to drink. I'm not much of a drinker, but it was usually easy to avoid the outings that were going to involve a lot of drinking, usually. One day, I ended up in a room with a few Chinese students and a few of my American classmates. Lots of drinking was happening, and they wanted me to join. I told them I couldn't stay, so they said I should have one for the road. I said okay, and with poorly suppressed giggles, they handed me a regular drinking glass with about 6 ounces of baijiu in it. Let me take a moment to explain baijiu for anyone who's unfamiliar. It's a 1-2-ish proof rice liquor that tastes like bottled evil. You could get the good stuff at high prices, or you could buy it in plastic bottles for less than the price of a bottle of water. Someone on our trip found a store that sold it in bottles with baby bottle nipples attached to the cap for people who wanted to drink until they passed out, without the risk of spilling any before they woke up again. So, Looking at this glass and not wanting to make Americans look weak, I said something about, "Oh, you could have given me a big one if I have to go early," and downed it in one go. I thanked them for their hospitality and set out for my room. It was conveniently located right across the hall. That was lucky for me because on my first step across the hall, I was fine. The second step felt sloppy, and by the third step, I was holding onto my doorknob for dear life. I made it to my bed and sat on it for a few hours, pondering my life choices, while I sobered up enough to be able to get dinner under my own power. Story number 6. Years ago, backpacking on my own in Berlin, had been out on one of those bar crawls that are targeted at people just like me at that time. The final stop was one of those multi-level clubs that Berlin is famous for. I was wasted and time to call it a day. I stumbled out of the club and found my way to a taxi. I hop in the back of the cab and in my thickest, drunkest Australian accent declare, "Seinfeld Place, please." After a bit of drunken back and forth, we managed to figure out that I probably meant Seinerfelder Platz. €90 later, I'm pretty sure I fell asleep in the cab, and the driver dropped me off at the station. I spent the next 45 minutes wandering up and down the street with a fold-out map out in front of me, trying to figure out where I was and why I couldn't find my hostel. At least 2 different people came up to me to see if I was okay or needed help. I finally found my hostel directly across the street from where the cab had dropped me. Story number 7. Went to a party with my girlfriend, now wife, and played a few drinking games, Flippy Cup, King's Cup, beer pong, and last but not least, no face, no chase. No face, no chase sent me over the edge because I kept winning every single round and drank a good amount of 1800 tequila. I drove back to our apartment. But when I woke up, I was in my aunt, uncle's house upstairs in their hallway with my underwear on inside out, and my uncle was nudging me with his foot when I looked up at him. He said, "Must have been a fun night if you ended up here. Before you leave, clean up the mess." He went downstairs, and as I struggled to get off the floor while trying to figure out what happened, after we left that party, I opened the door to the other room, and the mattress to the bed is on the floor with my girlfriend passed out on it. There's puke all around it, and leading into the hallway. Wild night, still don't have all the answers. I haven't drank a drop of alcohol since, and the smell of 1800 tequila makes my soul sick. That was 8 or so years ago. Story number 8. Waking up in a house I didn't recognize with a girl that didn't live there either, whose name I didn't know, with my pants in a car that didn't belong to any of us.